Welcome back to FRC Media. I'm Keith Tebow. Thank you for joining us on this Tuesday. You know, ever since we've been dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic, of course, we're not taking light over the fact that our lives, all of our lives have changed, and probably not so much as our public schools. Four of the public schools, of course, worked remotely since March. However, the unofficial end of the school year from 2019-2020 is actually going to take place next week, and it's actually some good news, as the class of 2020 at BMC Durfee High School will be holding its graduation, and we'll be holding it in person. We're going to talk a little bit about the graduation now. I'm joined by Matt Desmarais, the principal at BMC Durfee High School. Matt, how are you? Thanks for joining us.
I'm doing very well, Keith, and I hope the same for you. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, you're welcome. You know, I guess it's an understatement to say it's been a whirlwind, calendar and academic year at Durfee and at other schools. But I want to focus on graduation. It's the culmination for every school year. And, you know, I was just thinking about it before we got on the air was, back in the middle of March, things were going the way they normally would. And there's just in the course of 4 months, things have gone one way and then taken a 180-degree turn. I guess start by talking about what was originally planned for graduation prior to, I guess, the Commonwealth rebounding a little bit in terms of COVID-19 cases.
Sure. So as the spring moved along and there was not a lot of clarity as to what was going to happen, we looked at other communities and they were many schools that went ahead and did a drive-in graduation, a drive-through, where, families would come through with their car and we'd have an outdoor stage set up. The student would exit the car, receive their diploma, get back in the car and go. And without the clarity and, knowing that so much was unknown, we tried to give the students something that resembled graduation on graduation day. So that was the plan. And then in late May, when Governor Baker and the Department of Education released the regulations for high school graduations, the kids spoke up and we listened and we polled them, and they resoundingly said that we want to wait for an in-person graduation later this summer. So as soon as the regulations were released and the date that it could go live was released, we said, okay, let's do this.
And actually, I think the official date that graduations can be held live is actually coming up. Isn't it like the 19th or the 20th? And then graduation here is what, a week from today, correct?
Yes,
21st?
yes. So they go live the 19th. They're allowed to happen. So we chose a Tuesday evening for a variety of reasons. Some of it had to do with some of the construction going on here that we had to kind of get tightened up a little in time for the ceremony. So the ceremony is at 6 p.m. on Tuesday, July 21st.
Go into a little bit about how this is going to be not your average graduation, I guess, compared to years past, and what's going to be different. And I guess sort of lay out the agenda for people who are going to be attending. I'm sure the students and the graduates have gotten all this information, but for people who aren't quite sure what's going to be happening on Tuesday, fill us in on what the ceremony will look like.
Sure. Well, the first big change is that it's outside. For the last 10 years or so, we have been in our field house, and certainly we can understand why we're not indoors on this. So we will be out on the Mac Aldridge football field. What we're doing is we're opening gates to the West Main parking lot at 4 p.m. The reason why it's that far out from the start of the ceremony is that it's going to take a little while to get everybody into the stadium and seated. This is, again, because of the construction project. I've lost some parking lots that I have to have a limit of 1 car per family. Now, the guidelines that the state released certainly make the physical layout of the graduation look different, in that we are mandated to have the 6-foot social distancing between all graduates and then 6 feet between all sets of guests. We arrived at a number of 2 guests, and I know that that's a number that has caused some concern for a lot of people, but when you do the math, Keith, we're going to have roughly 1,400 people at this gathering. And so to add a 3rd guest or a 4th guest now puts that number up to 2,000. And we wanted to be sure that we could have a crowd that we could manage, and we could have something that would be absolutely safe. So students all attendees are going to have to wear masks. They're going to have to be socially distanced. They're going to have to remain seated throughout the ceremony, except unless there's an emergency. There won't be any live music. It'll be recorded music, such as the Pomp and Circumstance, the Star Spangled Banner, and the Durfee Alma Mater. And speeches will be cut a little short, not the kids' speeches. We're going to have the adults cut the speeches a little short. And even the way that we hand the diplomas to the students is going to be a little different, without handshakes and without all of the celebratory contact, let's say, that happens in a traditional graduation. Have you ever been to a Durfee graduation, Keith?
I was part of one.
Right.
Yeah, but besides I haven't been. And back in the olden days, when we were still at the current high school, class of '83, which is my class, we were actually in the field house. That was we had our graduation in there. So I guess I'm sure it's evolved over the years, right?
Yeah, it's when we run it on a Friday night, it's got a real celebratory feel to it, and could be considered raucous sometimes in a fun way. So that's going to be different, because the crowd we would typically have would be about 2,500 people on top of the graduates in that field house. So it's gonna feel different. But the students wanted to get together one more time as a class and to have their last moments here at Durfee be their graduation. So I'm really happy that we're able to do this. I am really hopeful that the community is going to help us conduct a very safe ceremony by adhering to the guidelines, and I know that they will.
One question that comes to my mind is, because I've been obviously at the football field many times. The stands you have there are not small, but 1,400 people still seems like a lot to me. That includes the graduates, I'm sure, as well.
Yes,
but
yes.
In terms of the people sitting in the stands, are there actually going to be markings where people have to sit?
Sure.
Pair of people, and how's that going to look, I guess, when you get there?
So there will be a certain number of people that will be able to sit in the stands, and then we will also have socially distanced sets of chairs on the track and on the remainder of the field, at either end zone. So, the stage is going to be sitting in front of the visitors' bleachers facing the home side. And I did that so that all the graduates would be in a reasonable distance from the stage, rather than if we went end zone to end zone, I would have to use the entire field just to lay out the class. So this is a way to maximize the space, but still to adhere to the guidelines. So it's going to be, even though we have this massive facility, when you use that 6-foot rule, we're going to use most of the facility's footprint to pull this off.
Whenever there's graduation, I'm sure you've dealt with this the many years you've been at the high school. When it comes to guests, there's always some people that want to bring everyone, and some people can only bring a few. And I think a lot of people, I'm sure you've heard maybe a few complaints, but I think overall, Matt, people have been understanding about the circumstances around this year's graduation and the limits that are around it, correct?
Sure. Obviously, there'll be some folks that aren't happy with the decision. We've already fielded their concerns. And as we share our reasoning, they nod their head and say, well, that makes sense. And so it is unfortunate that, the extended family can't be there and everybody, but we will be live streaming it. You'll be able to watch this on the Fall River Public Schools Facebook account, on the YouTube channel for our Fred TV. So there'll be additional ways for students, families to watch this in real time. One of the things that I do want to say, because this needs to be known by everybody who's going to be in attendance that night, no high heels. The membrane for our football field, for the turf, would be pierced by a high heel, and also our rubberized track. We could cause some damage. So anybody in attendance, we're asking you, please help us out. Wear flat shoes, sneakers, sandals, flip-flops, but you cannot come on to the track or to the football field with heels on.
You should tell everyone just to be comfortable for this evening, right?
That's right. Well, it's supposed to be 90 degrees that day, so dress appropriately for a very warm night.
It's actually, a good thing that the seniors are being recognized the way they are. And I know that, the school and the school department has recognized these seniors in other ways, prior to this change in graduation. Talk a little bit about that again. I know there have been signs put out at
Sure.
at their home. So talk a little bit about how else this class of 2020 has been celebrated.
So Mrs. Fogarty in the senior office had the idea that let's do something for the students, and following the trend that a lot of communities did, we delivered in just over like 3 hours to 470 some graduates. We delivered a lawn sign that said, proud member of the class of 2020, once a Hilltopper, always a Hilltopper. And then that led to some ideas, and there was a core group of some alumni, Mimi Larrabee from the school committee, some folks on staff here that got together and said, let's raise some money to do something for these students. So a second sign campaign emerged where the signs were sold as a fundraiser, and over $30,000 was raised for the class of 2020. Our Durfee Parents Advisory Council had $7,000 they had set for after prom, and they said, let's use that as the seed money. And so that, along with over $23,000 more from alumni, came in, and there's going to be something special given to every senior next Tuesday.
Yeah, well, that's great. It's we like to celebrate all the classes, of course, but there was a deep divide for some. I have a daughter. She's a class of 2020 high school as well, and she had an untraditional graduation where she actually went to an event at the middle school here locally, and I was able to get her diploma, and there was a video put together later. But as you know, it's not the same. Do you know if there are any students who may not attend because they're still concerned about COVID?
Sure. So we are currently getting that information. Part of the regulations are that we have to have the name of every person that attends that night in the event that we've got to do some contact tracing, et cetera. Right now, I have responses from about half the class. So, hey, class of 2020, I need you to go in your email and answer the survey. Are you going to be part of graduation? And if so, what are your 2 guest names? So hopefully, along with this interview, we can get a better response rate, but I know we'll get close. There have been some that have indicated that they won't be coming. Not a lot, but I want everyone to feel comfortable. And if there's a level of discomfort in participating in this ceremony, then that's okay. We will get you a diploma in hopefully a personalized way.
Well, I know we're all looking forward to graduation. It's always a great event, and it's good to see that the class of 2020 at Durfee High School will have as normal a graduation as possible. Matt Desmarais, principal at BMC Durfee High School, all the best. Good luck next week. And again, for those of you who are watching this, and obviously if you're not a member of the immediate family of the graduates, again, Fred TV, the high school website, YouTube, Facebook, you'll be able to watch the live stream of graduation. So Matt, thank you for joining us. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, Keith. Have a great day.
You too. Thanks. And I want to thank you all for joining us on this Tuesday. Again, 1 week from today, BMC Durfee High School's 2020 high school graduation. I'm Keith Tebow. Have a great rest of your Tuesday.